Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something I like to call the paradox of obedience, specifically looking at Exodus chapter 5. It's this fascinating text that completely shatters the illusion that just because you do the right thing, your life is automatically going to get easier. Actually, sometimes it's the exact opposite. Let's dive into why that is. So let me ask you this. Have you ever stepped out in faith only to watch things immediately get worse? I mean, we've all had those moments, right? Where obedience seems to actually make things harder instead of easier. Maybe you decide to pursue a better, more honest path, and suddenly, boom, the battle with your old habits just totally intensifies. You step out in faith and opposition skyrockets. Or you pray for deliverance from a really bad situation, and somehow the burden actually grows heavier. It's a deeply painful lived experience for sure. And in those incredibly frustrating moments, the immediate, natural human reaction is just to cry out, Lord, where are you? Like, why is this getting worse? Have you forgotten about me? And honestly, that is exactly the narrative hook where Exodus 5 meets us. Think about it. God has just called Moses, he's revealed his name, promised deliverance, and assured him that redemption is on the way. So Moses finally overcomes his fear, he obeys, and he walks right into Pharaoh's court. You'd naturally expect immediate victory, right? Cue the swelling music, the chains fall off, but no. Instead, the exact opposite happens. The situation literally plummets. Moses marches right in and drops this absolutely explosive command. He says, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go." Now, what's really interesting here, and you can't miss this, is that this specific wording is far more than just a plea for political liberation. He's not just trying to escape a bad boss. Moses is bringing a divine decree that completely reframes the entire story. This isn't some negotiation about labor laws or time off. No, this is a cosmic battle over ownership. Because the text illustrates a really stark contrast here. When Pharaoh looks at Israel, all he sees are mere laborers, just slaves building his earthly kingdom. But God's view? It's entirely different. God looks at them and sees his covenant people. He sees worshipers created for his glory. The narrative really drives home this massive concept that the people belong to Yahweh. They don't belong to earthly rulers, they don't belong to nations or cultures, and honestly, they don't even belong to themselves. And that brings us to a huge takeaway. True freedom isn't about just doing whatever you want. It's found in transitioning from oppressive bondage into joyful worship. Because at the end of the day, everyone serves something, right? Whether it's power, money, comfort, approval, yourself, or the living God, you are serving a master. The question the text is posing isn't whether or not you will worship. The real question is, what or whom are you going to worship? Which brings us to the absolutely astonishing reality of what Moses actually does here. It proves that a genuine encounter changes everything. Think about this for a second. Moses and his brother Aaron walk into the court of Pharaoh. We're talking about the single most powerful ruler in the known world at the time. And they don't ask nicely for a meeting. They don't try to negotiate a slightly better tax rate. No, they stand there with divine authority. That phrase, "Thus says the Lord," is explosive. Moses is speaking to a guy who literally considered himself to be a god, and he's doing it on behalf of the one true king. So how in the world did Moses get there? Well, let's look at the transformation. Remember before the burning bush? Moses was fearful, he was hesitant, constantly asking, "Who am I to do this?" He was terrified. But after the burning bush, he is entirely God-confident. He fears God way more than he fears Pharaoh. Sometimes we get in our heads that bold people are just naturally fearless, or they have this insane self-confidence. But biblical boldness, it's not natural self-confidence. It is a profound God confidence that is born entirely from encountering his majesty. When you truly encounter the Lord, much like Moses did, basically 4 things happen. First, his holiness humbles you. Second, his sovereignty steadies you. Third, his grace totally overwhelms you. And fourth, his glory compels you to act. Moses' fear of man completely lost its power because he saw someone so much greater. And we see this all over the text. Think of the prophet Isaiah. He was absolutely terrified until he saw God's holiness, and then he's like, "Send me." Or the apostles, right? Hiding behind locked doors in fear until they encountered the risen Christ, and suddenly they're out preaching boldly in the streets. A great view of God makes the pharaohs of this world look incredibly small. But of course, Pharaoh doesn't have a great view of God, which leads us to this massive rhetorical anchor in our story. Pharaoh just snaps back with, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice?" Now let's be clear, this is not a sincere intellectual question. Pharaoh isn't genuinely curious about theology here. No, this is pure unadulterated defiance. because human pride absolutely hates surrender. Pharaoh views himself as the ultimate authority, so acknowledging God would mean giving up his own throne. He wants to define his own truth. And this defiance triggers a terrifying downward spiral. It's basically the anatomy of human rebellion. Step 1 is ignorance, but it's a willful, moral rebellion. He flat out refuses to acknowledge the authority. Step 2 is resistance. The text explicitly says he hardens his heart immediately. And from there, it devolves into step 3, malevolence, pure cruelty. Pharaoh increases the suffering. He gives this incredibly brutal order to stop giving the Israelites the straw they need to make bricks, but, and here's the kicker, he demands they meet the exact same impossible brick quota. He doesn't just want them working, he wants to absolutely crush them. So why does Pharaoh do this? Simply put, tyrants fear people who listen to God. If the people are consumed with just surviving day to day, they're not going to have the energy to think about worship or freedom. And honestly, this strategy is an undeniable parallel to how opposition works today. The goal? Keep people distracted, keep them overwhelmed, keep them exhausted, and entirely consumed with earthly burdens. I mean, if you are constantly running on the exhausting treadmill of modern life, you literally never have the quiet or the energy to seriously consider God. It is a remarkably cruel yet super effective strategy. So Moses obeys, and the people's lives get infinitely worse. The burden grows heavier. The oppression intensifies. Now, if you happen to be sitting in a situation like that right now, I just want you to take a deep breath. This narrative reminds us of a really tough truth. God often allows the situation to worsen before revealing his power. Now, why on earth would he do that? Because he's setting the stage. He is preparing to do something so powerful, so completely unmistakably divine, that literally no human being, not Moses, not Pharaoh, not some brilliant military strategist, can take the credit for it. The deliverance is going to belong to him and him alone. And if we pan out and look at the broader scope, this isn't just a one-time event. It's actually an incredible thematic pattern we see throughout history. Think about it. Centuries earlier, God intentionally reduces Gideon's army down to almost nothing, so Israel can't boast that their own strength saved them. Jump to the New Testament, and Jesus intentionally waits until Lazarus has been dead in the tomb for 4 whole days. Why? To make the glory of God absolutely unmistakable. And look at Friday afternoon on the cross. It looked like total, apparent defeat. Darkness falls. Hope completely collapses. But God frequently allows the night to grow incredibly dark just before the dawn breaks, ensuring that the rescue is undeniably his. In fact, the heavy chains we see in Exodus 5 actually point perfectly to the ultimate rescue narrative in the entire text. You see, the bondage in Egypt represents a much broader human enslavement to things that we literally cannot break free from on our own: sin, death, judgment, and Satan. In this theological framework, when you look at the cross, it appeared the enemy had completely won. The burden was at its absolute heaviest. But the text shows God beautifully orchestrating redemption through that very apparent weakness, culminating in the ultimate glorious resurrection deliverance. Which brings us to our final, and honestly, perhaps the most important question for today. The text directly challenges us to ask ourselves, are you in an Exodus 5 moment right now? Did you step out in faith only to find that the bricks suddenly got heavier? The paradox of this story is a powerful reminder not to interpret difficulty as absence. The narrative illustrates that the heavier the chains feel today, the more magnificent that ultimate deliverance is designed to be. So hang in there. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. Keep learning, stay focused, and I will catch you on the next explainer.